Hey, guys. Welcome to the first episode of Pretty Sneaky Stuff, Conspiracies for Dummies. I am your one of your hosts, Chris, and with me I have...
Jefferson Smith. Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Jefferson Smith and Chris coming at you live on twitch.com/story. And, actually, twitch.tv/story. What we're going to be doing here is we started a new show called Pretty Sneaky Stuff, which is about conspiracies. And what do you think makes our show different than other conspiracy podcasts or shows?
Chris, the first thing I want everyone to know is, I guess let's say a little bit about ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, let's get that out of the way.
I got into conspiracy theories a long time ago. I might look young, but I'm actually an old chunk of coal. And
Okay.
I would say right around the year 2000, after kind of Bush was elected, I heard the word Illuminati, and
the magic word.
I didn't know what it meant, and my friend didn't want to tell me. And this is kind of the message I want to give to all you out there. I want to kind of give this message out to all you guys in podcast land that we're not here to tell you what to believe, because we don't really know what to believe. I'm more confused than I ever have been.
I know, God, yeah.
But what my friend told me was, I can't explain Illuminati to you. You have to just kind of do your own research. So that's what we want you to do. So how about you, Chris?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to definitely, we all have this fantasy that there's like an overarching system and, we're in the Matrix and we're not in control of our destiny and all stuff like that. And it's really awesome to think about. But I think it's very careful not to get carried away with that.
Yeah, I think what happens with me is, since I was a kid, we'd go to the library in school and the kids would be taking out books on Jose Canseco and Charlotte's Web. I would be I would be taking out books about the Loch Ness Monster, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and the skunk ape. So
I've never heard of the skunk ape.
Skunk ape, yeah, check it out.
What's the skunk ape?
Well, there was a really good Daily Show episode about skunk ape, and I think it's basically big. Bigfoot I think is up in Canada, but skunk ape is more like a Sasquatch down south.
That's sort of like, I think in the New Jersey, New Jersey, the Jersey Devil.
Right.
Yeah. So sort of, I feel like every sort of not zone, not climate, but every sort of region has like their own
Yep, and then there's
area, their own, monster.
And there's Yeti too, up in the snow in Europe.
Otherwise known as the abominable snowman.
Right,
sometimes.
exactly. Yeah. So I'm into alien stuff. I'm into all kinds of stuff, and basically, I just find this stuff to be kind of interesting stories, and so conspiracies kind of that's the progression. I graduated to world domination stories.
It's so fascinating. It is, and my first foray into conspiracy theories, and I am no expert by any means. Good God, I'm just some guy with a computer, sometimes with internet access if I pay my rent, who just likes to look up pretty sneaky stuff. I think the whole thing is fascinating. My first thing was the Loch Ness Monster, and I still believe it to this day. I want to get a submarine. I want to drain that lake.
It's fun to believe, right?
Yeah, it is. But today we're going to talk about something so that is what this podcast really is going to focus on. We're just going to explore some of the more popular conspiracies and hopefully some of the more obscure conspiracies.
Yeah, think of it like a primer,
Yeah, definitely.
Like I said, we can't tell you what to believe.
No.
You have to do your own research.
Yeah.
But maybe we can help you do that,
Yeah.
I've been kind of studying it for 10, 15 years, and there's a lot of definitions that are just kind of lingo, jargon in the community.
Yes.
So when you do kind of research and look into these things on your own, there might be some things that might be confusing to you. So hopefully the aim of this podcast will just kind of help you grasp everything a little quicker.
Okay. So, Eric, would you say the definition of a conspiracy, would you say that definition is a hidden agenda? Like just that basic...
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Hidden agenda. It could be by one person, could be shared by multiple entities, could be shared by whole countries or governments, as we'll talk about. But I think that for those new into the whole conspiracy world, and we're not, wing nuts going crazy yelling at the screen. We're two rational people who like cool stuff, and we're going to present all the facts to you and list some possible theories that some people believe, some people don't believe, and then at the end of the day, you can make your own your own judgment, as Jefferson said here.
Sounds good.
So, Eric, So what are we going to talk about for our first episode here?
Well, I think tonight's topic is MK Ultra.
MK Ultra. MK Ultra.
So what is that?
What is MK Ultra? So this is a pretty hardcore definition of MK Ultra. Project MK Ultra, also called the CIA's mind control program.
Yep, mind control.
Mind control. Which right off the bat, red flags left and right. This is sort of almost like, it's not the holy grail of conspiracy theories, but it's right up there.
And it kind of will show up in all different conspiracy
Yes.
theories too. It's kind of a way for all the kooks to say, to explain how these forces,
Exactly.
not government forces, but evil forces, use the brainwashing and mind control
Yeah.
to get these kind of lackeys,
to do their bidding.
to do their bidding.
So MK Ultra mind control program is the code name given to a program of experiments on human subjects, at times illegal, designed and undertaken by the United States Central Intelligence Agency. You heard it right, folks. That is the CIA. They've done it. They've openly discussed it.
They've admitted to it.
They have. And it's pretty scary because the experiments on humans were intended to identify and develop drugs and procedures to be used in interrogations and torture in order to weaken the individual, to force confessions through mind control. Organized through the Scientific Intelligence Division of the CIA, the project coordinated with the Special Operations Division of the U.S. Army's Chemical Corps.
Yeah. So
that was a big definition.
yeah.
Jefferson, can you break that down for sort of what that is?
Well, basically, what you need to know is a little bit after World War II, and definitely before the 1960s was a time when the CIA and not just the we don't want to say like the government was involved, because you gotta know, and you may not know this, that the CIA is really an independent entity. They're pretty much untouchable.
Yeah.
They have power more than a lot of the other branches, and different types of power that allows them to basically stay active. They can run front organizations. They can set up fake businesses, real businesses even. So but the point is, they can get income, and they can stay going even if we cut their funding 100%. So that's why I say they're not really the government. They're their own entity.
Yeah.
So
when we say the government, we're not saying like the Department of Transportation.
We love our country.
We love our country. Well, at times the DMV can be a pain in the ass, but the CIA did do this. As Jefferson sort of iterated, it began in the 1950s, sort of right after that. Right after World War II had sort of like the dust settled.
Cold War was just starting up.
We were getting ready for, we just finished this. Now we gotta get ready for this.
And what you have to know is the CIA was, experimenting with all sorts of things, not just mind control and brainwashing. So this is just one of those things.
I guess from a devil's advocate, they sort of had to, right? Because if we were living, I was not alive during the Cold War, and it was sort of like kill or be killed. Like, we need to be at that next level, because if we're not researching mind control, maybe they are.
Oh, we know they are.
And it's sort of like, all right, first man to the moon wins. Whoever can control.
Of course,
so there is that.
I mean, everyone sometimes these people think that the ends justify the means. So any kind of leg up they can get on
and. So as we said, they began in the 1950s. They were officially halted in 1973. Basically, they used unwitting and Canadian citizen at times. They focused mostly on LSD, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, and abuse. So...
one of the craziest things to know is that after World War II, when we, pretty much got rid of the Nazis, we were interested in what the Nazis were researching. So we actually brought a few of them over to assist with all this stuff. So it gets pretty creepy.
Yeah, and that was called Operation Paperclip, I believe.
Yeah.
Operation Paperclip is when we sort of said, hey, you guys are evil, but you're pretty smart. You want to play for our team?
Yeah.
They gave them reduced sentences. They
gave them their own research facilities to basically do what they wanted.
Pardoned them from war crimes, gave them new identities. I think that, oh man, I can't say this for a fact, but I believe that Joseph.
Dr. Death.
Dr. Death.
Basically the most evil scientist there was.
Yeah.
Joseph Mengele.
Mengele. We were having a discussion on how to pronounce his name before the show. And we settled on Mengele.
He would do the most heinous things.
Yeah, and he was sort of the the one who, I guess, he was like, hey, let's do this. I was like, I have research on mind control. Pick me up, put me in, coach. And the U.S. CIA was like, okay, let's see what we can do here. Mm-hmm. Now, where did this happen? This happened in 80 institutions, including 44 colleges and universities. It happened in hospitals. It happened in prisons. It happened in pharmaceutical companies, which we already know Big Pharma is out to get us. There's no money in curing a disease, but there is in treating a disease.
Right.
And as Jefferson said, the CIA front operations, where at times the business owners of the factories, the stores, had no idea that they were even working for the CIA.
Yeah, this is kind of like where you can think of the CIA kind of segmenting it off, putting different portions of their research in other people's hands, and those people didn't know the other people that were working on things, and maybe they were just working on one thing, but they didn't see the bigger picture. So that's how you can get a lot of well-meaning, citizens to do these things that might be nefarious.
Yeah, if everyone's working on one piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of like John Wayne Gacy when he would be burying his corpses. I don't want to get too macabre here, but when he was burying his corpses underneath his house in the crawl spaces, he would have contractors come and just work on certain parts of his crawl space. So that's another interest to serial killers for me.
We're definitely going to do an episode on serial killers. At the time of this recording, they just came out with they're coming out with a Jeffrey Dahmer movie.
And you can actually say that perhaps a lot of serial killers that cause fear for the country have been MK Ultra'd. So
and that's a great point. Mm-hmm. And I want to come back to that when we go into all of this, because that is definitely something I want to talk about. Now, acknowledgement, right? Acknowledgement. Mm-hmm. This isn't something that we're just sort of pulling out of our asses.
No.
It has been acknowledged, and it's been acknowledged so much so that in 1975 there was the Church Committee of the U.S. Congress, headed up by the Gerald Ford Commission, and what they wanted to do, they wanted to investigate the CIA activities within the United States. I believe this all had something to do with everyone freaking out about Watergate.
Okay.
They were all like, what's our government doing? Is this trustworthy?
Yeah, and it's after all the assassinations and the Bay of Pigs in Cuba.
Yeah, it was like we need, I would say, not national pride was down, but it definitely was getting kind of there. So what happened? The CIA, a little bit before this, in 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms saw this sort of fear coming that they were going to be outed, and they ordered all MK Ultra files, records, to be destroyed. They ordered it in 1973, 2 years before the public really found out about MK Ultra.
Wouldn't you try to destroy them?
Of course. Oh my God, yeah. Of course, yeah. It's like, but Thankfully, though, in 1977, the Freedom of Information Act revealed that 20,000 documents were still in existence. Mm-hmm. So it sort of gave that committee and that commission sort of like, see, we're telling the truth. Like, we only have 20,000 files, but
it's a treasure trove of documents, and this is something that you can go and read. You out in podcast world can go out and access.
Yes, you can. And actually, we have here, I pull up the visual cam. This is right off the bat. We are not lying here, folks. CIA.gov in the library/reading room /blah, blah, 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 blah. CIA.gov. You can, boom, right there. MK Ultra, mind control experiments. How crazy is it?
So what I'm telling you,
How crazy is that?
I know.
That your government is like, yeah, we did this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I have conversations about this with people that aren't in woke, that's a term we'll go over later.
Woke, sheep, chill, whatever. You're gonna do all those.
So,
quotes,
but basically, when you're having these conversations with people, they do not believe at first, that we were researching this, but we've researched everything. I mean,
yeah, and I feel like again, they sort of had to kind of do the best they could, but I mean, if you go back to that page here, if we pull up again the visual cam right here, there are just pages and pages and pages. I mean, we can go to the 9th page here and still keep on playing here, but. So, feel free to head to the CIA.gov and check out all this information for yourself. But this is just to prove that we're not talking out of our asses. MK Ultra is a real thing, or it was a real thing. Is it still a real thing? It could.
More on that later.
More on that later. So Jefferson. Actually, I do. Actually, Jefferson, you had a quote by the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. Why don't you go ahead and read that quote for us?
So in 1985, the Supreme Court publicly stated, MK Ultra is the research and development of chemical, biological, and radiological materials capable of the employment in clandestine operations to control human behavior. So that's really just a scrubbed, cleaned up way to say, we were messing with people's minds and seeing what would happen.
What happened, and that's like the Supreme Court here.
I mean, you can just, your mind can go crazy thinking why they would want to be doing these things.
Yeah.
Cold War, that was the time of spy versus spy. The Russian spies, English spies, and American spies. So if we could, get some kind of advantage by, maybe brainwashing a Russian, operator to do our bidding.
Oh my God!
The sky's the limit. You can open a Pandora. They wanted to, open a Pandora's box to see, how can we utilize this.
Yeah, and I think that again, just to have. It's very rare, I think, nowadays to have sort of that self-disclosure, like the Supreme Court saying this is going on, the CIA saying this is what we did. But it still wasn't self-disclosure. It was forced disclosure.
Was, but thankfully we're still, we're a free country.
Thankfully,
and, the Freedom of Information Act is one of my favorite things.
Insane. It's insane. It changed everything.
You can pretty much go to any, governmental office and say, I want the stuff that you have, and they have to give it to you. You know, as long as it's not like a national security thing.
God bless America. That's also a fun word, national security. Which that word can be used to either justify everything, including holding back materials or black bagging someone. Mm-hmm. Here. How did this start? Okay, so we talked about Operation Paperclip. Operation Paperclip was the 1945 operation to recruit Nazi scientists. And from Operation Paperclip, many different operations were sort of created underneath that sort of MK Ultra umbrella. And a lot of people think there hasn't really been that much discussion onto where the name MK Ultra came from. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people think that, so the German translation for control is control, which is, and I know I'm saying this wrong, so sorry, but it's spelled control with like 2 L's and a K. Uh-huh. So everyone says, since it sort of started as a German project from the Nazis, it probably stands for Mind Control Ultra.
Okay.
That's sort of it. And anyway, it was sort of this giant umbrella here that branched many different operations, such as things called Operation Chatter, Operation Bluebird, which was later named Operation Artichoke. There was an operation called Midnight Climax. Midnight Climax, Midnight Climax is actually an operation in which the CIA created brothels in San Francisco, and what they did is they would drug unwilling Johns. Is that the people who use Johns?
Yeah.
They would drug Johns, and then they would have rooms with one-way mirrors, microphones, video recording, and they would just watch them trip balls on LSD. And they did it at brothels because by the time the men left, even if they wanted to complain, were they going to say like, "Listen, honey, I was at a brothel,
Right.
and I lost my mind.
Yeah.
You know, that's not exactly the best way to keep your job. Operation Midnight Climax was one of these operations, and there were 150 sub-projects to MK Ultra.
Yeah, I mean, not only were they in brothels, they were dosing soldiers. They were
Yeah.
dosing people that were incarcerated. So
Yeah, prisoners, sometimes willingly, sometimes unknowingly.
sometimes their own agents, their own
Yeah,
agents
yeah.
were willing to do that. You had another story about a guy who was dosed, how many days?
Oh, here we go. Yeah. New York, one New York Times article, and of course, for links regarding our research to this, we'd be more than happy to share them with you. So, shoot us a message on Twitch, and we'd be happy to get those resources for you. But one New York Times article reported that one agency officer put it as, "We targeted people who could not fight back." In one case, a mental patient in Kentucky was dosed with LSD continuously for 174 days.
Wow. So his brain was basically mush.
If he had some semblance of stability before that, 174 days? I mean, I like to party, but not 174 days in a row in Kentucky.
It kind of reminds me of the movie Clockwork Orange, and if you've never seen it,
Yeah.
it's all about brainwashing.
Yeah.
And, geez, imagine that.
Yeah. Just shout out to The Real Conspiracy. They're saying hi here. Thank you for watching The Real Conspiracy. We appreciate you guys checking us out.
Absolutely.
Here. Yeah. So as we get back to, for those of you just tuning in on twitch.tv/story or listening to us on iTunes, we are talking about MK Ultra, which is sort of that overarching mind control experiment the CIA did create. They admitted it, and we're talking about right here LSD, which seems to be the main weapon.
But,
I guess, tool?
LSD and all kinds of variations.
Yeah,
Of,
yeah, and a lot of this we have here. Going back to those 150 sub projects, I did just want to talk about two of the projects which I thought were fascinating. One of them was a truth drug, specifically aimed at targeting Soviet spies in World War II.
Okay, so now we're getting into kind of the reasons why,
Yes.
or the applications to all this research. So.
Yeah, which it's I don't want to say justified, that's tricky. Not justified, but justified for them in their own minds why they would drug patients willingly and unwillingly.
It was a crazy time. I mean,
game.
we were afraid of
Yeah.
the Russian, nuclear war. The whole
The Red
world
Scare.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want to talk about here is Sub-Project 54 was called Perfect Concussion. Perfect Concussion. And what Perfect Concussion is, they would basically focus, this was the Navy's sort of realm. The Navy really championed this. So they didn't champion it, they sort of directed it. Frequency blasts to erase memory. Like a boom.
So auditory frequencies.
Yeah, like
So audio. So basically
Yeah.
sound waves just pummeling.
yeah, which I think is just insane. Like to what do you think's scarier? Controlling someone's mind or erasing their mind? Which I guess
Wow.
mean, if you can control their mind, you can also erase their mind.
Yeah.
But still, like
I guess if you can control them, you can make them do whatever you
yeah,
wanted them to
yeah.
do. And
but if you erase their mind, you can say like,
your life is over.
yeah. What is a bigger threat than saying I'm going to erase everything you are? Like, I think that's the ultimate blackmail.
I can't say I guess that's worse. You are, yourself. You
but-
are what's in here.
But are you? If they can control your mind,
I don't know.
you become a different. Anyway, both they're equally
So
terrifying.
just to touch on this
Yes.
auditory, the pummeling of the sound waves. Actually, right now in 2017,
Yes.
there have been agents and ambassadors from our country to Cuba,
Okay.
who have come back saying that they have just don't have a memory of something. They explain
God.
of these crazy sounds that they would hear, and I think nosebleeds and headaches, and they come back, and the Cuban government is saying they have no idea, and maybe they don't. Maybe it's Russian spies in Cuba doing this to our country. So, this is top news. The past, in the summer.
Recent? Is that recent?
It's the summer of 2017, and we still don't know really what happened.
Wow.
So this stuff that was researched back in the 50s could be going on right now.
I don't want to disparage Cuba. Do you think they would have the technology?
No, I would be surprised if they do. That's
Yeah.
why I said maybe it could be. But Cuba and Russia have always been buddy-buddy. But
I feel
I don't want to disparage or cast
Yeah,
aspersions on
yeah,
the Cuban
definitely.
government, because
No,
I
yeah.
actually really love the Cuban government. So
Yeah.
let's go ahead.
I think that's insane. I think it's absolutely insane. But so thank you for that sort of report.
Bringing it back to the present.
Bringing it back here. So we have, as Jefferson discussed, LSD was administered to CIA employees, military personnel, doctors, other government agents, and members of the general public. We talked about the focus was to study their reactions. And a guy named Dr. Sidney, I'm going to mess this up, Gottlieb? Is that something? Gottlieb? He was sort of the chemist who directed MK Ultra for the majority of the time. He was the one who really pushed for not just LSD testing, covert LSD testing. Drugging people's drinks at work. It was to a point where if you worked at the CIA during this, everyone around you was getting drugged. You were getting drugged, and it was sort of
so when they did it without their knowledge, it reminds me of the first time the Beatles tried it, when John and it was George, who were at their doctor's, their dentist's office, or not the dentist's office, but they were having dinner with their dentist.
Yeah.
After about a half hour, the dentist says, John, George, we just dosed you. Have fun. And it was fun for them. But that's just an aside.
The dentist did it?
Dr. Robert.
Wow,
There's a song about it.
The dentist in the dining hall was the culprit.
Yep.
Wow, alrighty. Well, again, I'm sure they loved it.
Oh, right.
But yeah.
That wasn't their only time, so of course. But moving on. The administration of these drugs, would that be it? Administering these drugs to those who did not have that informed consent was actually a violation of something called the Nuremberg Code that the U.S. had agreed to follow after World War II. However, that was just straight up violation, as we talked about. Dr. Sidney Gottlieb was more like, hey, let's just do this to anybody and everybody, because our own CIA, what makes a better spy? A CIA agent makes the perfect spy. Close to the information. Your best friends sometimes are your worst enemies. So he would drug military personnel and CIA agents, and it was just sort of like, there's actually, you can actually go onto YouTube and watch video of, that was recorded, our military dosing soldiers.
Yeah, and I think we actually have that. Let me go ahead and make sure the audio here isn't a little crazy here. Let me go ahead as we pull up our visual cam. Visual cam is active here.
Yeah, if you just scroll through.
As we scroll through here.
They gave all these soldiers LSD just to. Well, this is the first time it was created. They didn't know what LSD did to someone, so this is kind of documents of some of their research, which.
This is the Army on acids or
it's
LSD.
crazy to think about,
Well, let's see if we can find some of them running on them.
Yeah, see, they're laughing. They can't really.
They're just losing their minds.
Can't pay attention.
Can't stay up straight.
So
this is actually this is a real thing.
One of the more fun days for boot camp, I would say.
Yeah, I would say the enlistment rate skyrocketed after that. As we go back to our show camera. Hi, welcome back. But yeah, so I think the video's still playing here. I just think that's nuts. That LSD was thought to be this sort of magic sort of power that they could sort of unlock, hidden potential.
Yeah, and maybe it is, you know.
Because who knows how far they made it? Because it's hard to trust. Like if someone gets caught doing something, and like, oh my bad, we'll stop. You know, it's sort of like these scientists were sort of addicted to this experiment. It's like a gambling addict.
Well, I mean, this is we're talking about the human brain. You know,
Yeah.
There's so many mysteries yet to be discovered about the humans and human existence. So
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really blame them for at least trying to figure out if there could be a positive use for this. And again, all the other governments, I'm sure, were doing it.
Yeah. It's just that we're talking about this because we live in the United States. Now, there were some really popular MK Ultra patients.
So well-known stories
well-known.
involving this.
Yep, and I want to talk about three of them. So the first one was actually Ken Casey, and he was the author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
One of the greatest authors ever.
Yeah, and I read that before. He did this in college, voluntarily in college. I guess what happened was that his roommate signed up to sort of take these, and while his roommate was doing it, Ken Casey was training in the Olympics. He was like a star athlete, and his roommate couldn't do it, so I guess he filled in.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yes, yeah, and I think I actually have. Put up the old visual camera here. Ken Casey. Yeah, he was a graduate student at Stanford University. Came into the study by accident. He was training for the 1960s Olympics. Had never done any sort of drugs or tasted alcohol.
He was an
before
Olympic.
this.
He was trying to be a wrestler.
A wrestler. Yeah, which I think is crazy. And then he took the drugs, and I mean, for him, it was a positive thing because it unlocked his creativity.
Oh yeah, and we know that he didn't stop because he was a friend of Hunter S. Thompson and Timothy Leary. So
yeah, so hey, great job. So, but as we move down, Whitey Bulger, there's actually a movie about him.
there's a couple movies. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The DiCaprio movie was about him.
That's the one I was thinking of. I can't think of the name.
Let's move on because
we can't think of the name.
The Departed.
The Departed. The Departed. Cool.
And Johnny Depp just played him also.
Okay.
So that's Whitey Bulger.
Whitey Bulger. Now,
kind of a cool guy, even though he murdered a lot of people. But go ahead.
He's kind of a badass.
Okay. A bad guy, badass.
Bad. He was in federal prison in exchange for a lighter sentence. For 18 months, he sort of just took LSD right to the face. Now this is wild because he was so deeply affected negatively by the project that Bulger compared the program's doctor to Josef Mengele.
Dr. Death.
Dr. Death, the Nazi doctor responsible for the horrific human experimentation conducted at concentration camps. Which I think is kind of funny because Mengele was sort of involved. Like, he was like if it was a pyramid scheme, Josef's all the way up here.
Yeah.
Bulger's doctor's down here. But at the end of the day. Yeah, and it just felt bad for him. Like he feared telling anybody of his visual and auditory hallucinations would lead to a lifelong commitment in an insane asylum.
Wow.
So he just took it for 18 months.
So, I mean, it could explain why he was so crazy as a mob boss.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah.
I did say DiCaprio earlier, but DiCaprio was just a soldier. Jack Nicholson played Whitey Bulger in The Departed.
Oh,
and maybe that's why I think he's a cool guy. I don't know, because Jack's the coolest. So
as we move down here, George W. White or George H. White.
Okay.
My mind automatically went to George W. Bush for some reason. George H. White here. Now this guy, as we go back to our show camera here, so George H. White. My gosh.
Speaking of George W. Bush, his father ran the CIA for a long time, but keep going.
George
H.W. Bush.
Around what time?
Ran the CIA in the late 70s. So Skull and Bones is something we'll probably, that's for another podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah, as we get close to our 30-minute mark that we just sort of crossed that threshold here. Thank you for joining us again on Pretty Sneaky Stuff, Conspiracies for Dummies. I am Chris. With me we have...
Jefferson Smith.
Jefferson
And again,
Smith.
this is just kind of an intro to conspiracies, like a primer, so we can kind
Yeah.
of help you on your way. Again, we don't know what to believe. Like I said earlier, am more confused than I've ever been. But this stuff is just kind of fun and interesting, and
It is.
so
It is. So George H. White remember we talked about Operation Midnight Climax? If you don't remember, we talked about it 10 minutes ago. That was sort of the operation where the CIA set up brothels in San Francisco to drug patients or Johns. George H. White was sort of like the leader behind that. He was the head sort of director in that here. With the aforementioned head, if I pull up the visual cam, aforementioned head of Operation Midnight Climax and an agent with the U.S. Bureau of Narcotics. He loved LSD.
Okay.
He loved this whole thing. And there's actually a quote. Let's find the quote is from him.
so he loved the idea of using it for
He
these purposes.
Yeah, he loved everything about it.
Okay.
Whether it was for nefarious reasons or just purely recreational reasons.
Okay.
So much so. He wrote a letter to Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, who was sort of the guy pushing for covert LSD testing. He says, and I quote, "I was a very minor missionary, actually a heretic, but I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, fun, fun." He already sounds like a psychopath right
yeah.
there. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All Highest? All Highest being the CIA.
Okay. So, I mean, right off the bat, that quote, our audience will probably have to read that themselves because to me, it makes no sense and is an example of, he must have been on some kind of.
It sounds like he was on it when he wrote it.
You're right.
I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards.
Well, don't forget these people that do LSD, constantly after
Yeah.
a certain amount of time, it just you're an
Yeah.
insane person after.
Yeah, I just really wanted to say that I think that was like a pretty terrifying quote because that was somebody so high up in the government or so high up in like the CIA talking about this is an excuse for us to lie, to cheat, to steal. I don't know if he said murder, but some people died during this process. Rape, pillage. Who uses the word pillage?
Yeah, well,
Vikings and crazy people use the word pillage.
These people, for a lot of them, the ends justify the means.
Oh my gosh. But anyway, so I just thought that was a really interesting quote that I wanted to share with you guys. Now, that's pretty.
So we had Ken Kesey, we had Whitey Bulger. Who
Yeah.
else did we have?
We had Dr. White, and you. Unfortunately, there aren't really any more notable names where there are, but I did not know any.
No, there's a few.
Yeah.
People say that John Lennon's killer was
Okay.
a project of the CIA
Okay.
mind control.
Okay.
A little bit about him. He, was obsessed with Beatles records, and he said that he had voices in his head, telling him that he has to murder, one of the greatest singers of a generation.
That's wild.
Maybe of all time. So, when you think about John Lennon, what he was all about at the end of his life was about peace, was about, getting rid of war, so he was maybe a little bit naive because, humans just want to kill each other. But the fact that John Lennon had so many fans the world over, and he was talking about peace, peace is not something that is profitable for these countries.
Yeah.
So when you think about, a lot of these singers
Yeah.
and cultural icons that have been killed,
Yeah.
these were people that had the power to bring people together
Influential.
and maybe
Yeah.
make changes that these, the elite don't want to happen. The elite, I tell people a lot of the times, when they think that our world is chaotic, the way our world is right now is exactly how a small amount of people want it. So it's
Yeah.
not really chaotic when you think about it.
And that sort of brings me to the magic word, the magic conspiracy word. Illuminati.
Okay.
Now, the Illuminati is something that absolutely everybody and anybody has some sort of, like, they recognize the word before.
Yeah, if you haven't heard the word, you are probably living under a rock. If you type in I in Google,
That's
I
the
think
first thing.
Illuminati is the first thing. So.
Anybody who sees someone do this gets freaked out.
Well, a little bit of background of the Illuminati. I mean, there was an actual secret society called the Illuminati in Bavaria, in I think it was the 1700s. People, it was an actual existing body that I think they wanted to go against the church.
Which was a no-no.
Which was a no-no back then. So you can almost say that they were the first kind of forces that started this whole science against religion battle that we're seeing now. But now, a lot of people will say that that group, the original Illuminati, they're not in existence anymore. So nowadays, the term Illuminati is really just a catch-all word, kind of a general word to talk about forces that are controlling, the world.
Yeah.
And when I first heard about it, I thought, it's one group, but really it's just Illuminati is just a general word that people throw around to talk about, secret societies, the Masons, the Vatican, the Catholic Church.
It's sort of like one of those, just like a blanket term.
Yeah.
It's a blanket term. And I know there were some terms that you wanted to discuss at the end of the show. Sort of those words that are tossed around in the community.
Well, like I said earlier, this podcast, Pretty Sneaky Stuff, is pretty much a primer or an intro to the conspiracy world. And like we said earlier, we just think these are kind of crazy, interesting stories.
Yeah,
if you don't like conspiracies, I totally understand. Just kind of stay away.
Yeah.
But for us, I think of them as like ghost stories, alien stories.
Just fun to talk
kind
about.
of something to take your mind off of like the doldrums of everyday life.
Exactly.
That's what it is for me.
Yeah.
But so since this will be a primer for conspiracies, what we want to stress is that we don't know what we believe. We don't want to tell you what to believe. This kind of the whole conspiracy world is something that you need to research on your own and kind of draw your own conclusions.
Yeah.
But when you're doing that, you're going to come up on words that you might not know. So, as we, do more episodes of this, we'll have terms that we'll discuss. The first one, what did you want me to talk about?
No, I was just talking about some common phrases. Now, did you want to get into those phrases, or did you want to go into the popular MK Ultra sort of cases?
Well, let's talk about one more case.
Okay, all right. So we have a couple to really go over.
I think the biggest.
I'm gonna let you. Yeah, I'm gonna let you take this part.
Okay.
But I do just want to say shout out to, we have a viewer in New Zealand.
Wow.
Actually, right now.
Awesome.
Yeah. Shout out to.
What is he? A Kiwi? Is that what they call New Zealanders? A Kiwi?
A Kiwi. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
But it sounds delicious. Whatever it is.
New Zealanders are delicious.
So I wouldn't know.
Okay.
So why don't you go ahead and talk to us about something?
When I think of MK Ultra, I think the biggest story is Robert F. Kennedy.
Yes.
So John F. Kennedy's brother.
Okay.
I actually loved Robert F. Kennedy more than, JFK was wonderful, but Robert F. Kennedy was really the voice of the people. So when you talk about someone who really wants to give a voice to the people, which is what the elite don't want, this is someone that they have to get rid of. So famously, his assassin, the official story is a gentleman named Sirhan Sirhan. He's from the Middle East, I think. And just kind of the interesting things about it is after the fact, we didn't kill him. Robert F. Kennedy, if you don't know, he was killed in a hotel, I think in California, in the kitchen after he gave a big speech. And so there's kind of a lot of weird things that happened, little tidbits and stuff that happened with the story. Afterwards, Sirhan was just, he was a blank. He was comatose. He wasn't even, he was just staring straight ahead, not even blinking. And to this day, we didn't execute him. He's still in prison. And
Really?
Really?
I did not know that.
Yes,
usually we just kind of cut those ties.
I think probably nowadays we would have. But so to this day, he says he has no recollection of anything. And there's other stories where, so perhaps they used, there's a story that when they do use this brainwashing, they plant these symbols in people's. It's a lot like there's a movie about it we'll talk about later, but another time.
It's like trigger words and trigger symbols.
Symbols is a big thing, So basically, Robert F. Kennedy was shot in the kitchen, and so Sirhan Sirhan.
I just wanted to say sorry. Talking about those symbols, you talked about a movie.
Go ahead.
For all of the lighthearted people watching, oh my God, Zoolander, Derek Zoolander.
Mm-hmm.
This was sort of like a reference to MK Ultra. Derek Zoolander, you've seen the movie, correct?
Yeah.
Derek Zoolander was sort of brainwashed and had these trigger symbols put in. So when it was a specific song, and when the music hit, he tried to kill the Prime Minister of Malaysia.
Okay.
So that's sort of just. It's a comedy movie. It's a far-fetched comparison, but just an example. That would be a trigger, an image, a music, a scent, a taste.
Exactly.
Yeah. So go on.
I think people talk about maybe a playing card like an ace of spades or something.
Yeah, something just.
So they basically, what the conspiracy theory is that they use this gentleman as a patsy. You know, he did fire the trigger that wounded Robert F. Kennedy. You know, as the conspiracy goes, but there was a strange gentleman there that witnesses placed at the scene. So what people might think is that this was a CIA agent who. Administered the fatal shot to kill one of the greatest candidates for president in our history. That I would say that's the one that comes to my mind when I think MK Ultra.
And they actually found Sirhan's diary as they searched his home, and we have a quote here. So we have a diary found during a search of Sirhan's home stated for the entry of May 19th. What day was he shot on?
Oh, I don't know.
We'll have to check on that.
June 5th, 1968.
June 5th, 1968. This is a quote from Sirhan Sirhan's diary, May 19th. My determination to eliminate RFK is becoming more and more of an unshakable obsession. RFK must die. RFK must be killed. Robert F. Kennedy must be assassinated. Robert F. Kennedy must be assassinated before June 5th, 1968. That's sort of the scribblings of a crazy person.
Yeah.
Like, sort of, you think of like these shows and these movies and these books where someone is gone totally mental nuts and they just like write the same thing on a notebook over and over and over and over and over again.
He's talking like a robot, you know?
It must die, must be, like repeating his commands, must be assassinated before June 5th, 1968. That's insane. Oh my God, that just kind of gives me the heebity-jeebities. Man, the curse of the Kennedys. The curse of the Kennedys.
Yep.
I heard a conspiracy that who's the father of the Kennedy brothers?
I don't know. John F. Kennedy's brother? I mean, John F. Kennedy's father?
Yeah.
Probably some rich guy.
I heard that he made a pact with the devil, and the devil came to collect.
Hey.
And just wiped out the whole.
I believe it, but I would also believe that this was a great family that wanted to change, our country for the better. And some people didn't want our country changed for the better.
Yeah. Now, I was doing some research here, and I don't want to call these conspiracies far-fetched, but it is something I want to bring up because we do have a little bit of time left. We do have some time left, and John F. Kennedy's assassination. A lot of people, you type in MK Ultra, one of the things that's popping up lately, mostly because I guess Donald Trump is sort of deliberating whether to release, I think like 3,000 pages of declassified information.
Oh yes, that's coming up soon. I can't wait.
Yeah, so this is sort of why I just want to bring this up as we make this recording. A lot of the conspiracy theories that I've been seeing lately are Jackie Kennedy was involved, and they're just. And Jefferson, I know you're a big fan of Jackie Kennedy.
Yeah, I loved her.
And a lot of people did. A lot. I mean, she did.
But I just love her because she was classy. She was
cultured,
fashionista.
She was just sort of like the one woman every woman wanted to be. I mean,
even to this day, when people wear giant sunglasses, they call them Jackie O's.
Yeah. So. Unfortunately, though, some of the conspiracies do sort of question her. And as I was doing some research, I just want to bring up some stuff that I thought that was kind of like, oh, that's kind of weird, because, again, we have to look at everything from both sides of the track. So Jackie Kennedy, obviously, the wife of JFK, riding in the car. Now, Jackie Kennedy, and I have some pictures. Well, first and foremost, Jackie Kennedy admitted in a letter, and let me go ahead and see if I can pull this up here. As I pull up our cameras here, Jackie letter here. Okay, so a lot of people think that Jackie Kennedy was involved with MK Ultra. Now, this letter may be hard to read. It was for me.
I just want to stop you. Not involved in MK Ultra, but a victim, maybe.
A victim, not a willing participant. Now, this was hard to read for me because I do not read cursive well. But as we can go see here, the underlined statement is what I want to draw attention to. So she was writing this letter because she was nominated for an award, and she says, "I am not eligible for the first prize." She says, "I've talked to the man in the CIA to be in employment here." And as let me move forward here to the camera so I can read this here. She said, "I have talked to the man in the CIA who would be my employer. I pestered him from the job, promised I would take it." As we move towards the bottom here, she says, "It would be a special," and you follow my cursor here, "it would be a special job on a certain project, and it would only last 3 months, from October till January." She had never before admitted that she was working with the CIA. She did say that her father, who was a very influential man,
Yes.
did try to get her a job at the CIA.
Okay.
But so she was talking about here a special prize or a special project that she was going to be working on for 3 months. Then people make, I guess there was a situation where Jackie was walking and a very particular paparazzi man did approach her, and Jackie sort of out of nowhere did this sort of martial arts flip and flipped this gentleman and was captured walking away. And she adamantly denies that she was ever there and has no recollection of that. But she just sort of like sprung into action and just took this guy down.
Well, that makes me think that maybe she was trained, from an early age.
Or just had like 3 months. If she was being primed to be sort of involved in this assassination, they would want her to be able to do whatever needs to be done. However, then you could say that being the wife of a president, maybe she was trained on self-defense techniques.
That's
because
true.
Being a popular,
Yeah, who knows?
who knows? But something else I just wanted to really draw attention to here.
So what was the main goal that this theory is talking about? What was she involved with?
The main goal is that she sort of was given a series of triggers to just snap into action and actually deliver the fatal blow to JFK.
Wow.
And there were such reports as she was seen with at the airport when they landed. She was seen being given a very small. Remember the puppet lamb chop? Remember the puppet lamb chop? She was seen given a lamb chop puppet by a little girl, and some people say that maybe inside that puppet something could have been concealed.
So a weapon.
Yep, a weapon.
It could also be that what was it? The lamb little
chop
stuffed
puppet?
animal.
Yep.
So that could have been one of those symbols. That triggered her.
Yeah, because that's a pretty Okay.
They use simple objects, maybe that they can reference
see a lot.
Yeah, and maybe that can reference from childhood. So something that was ingrained in you for a long time.
I didn't even think about that. I guess at the airport, everyone around her was given yellow roses, but she was the only one to be given red roses.
So that's another trigger.
Another
symbol. Color red, maybe.
Maybe the color red, which is a really popular trigger. Red is used for everything. Stoplights, stop signs, sort of like that sort of red, flashing red.
Yeah. Red's a powerful color.
It is. It immediately draws attention. That's why car insurance for red cars are more expensive than non-red cars. But I just want to bring up some pictures here of viewer discretion. Some of these pictures here may sort of be a little extreme here. One of them being a picture of JFK's body. As I pull up our camera here, they say that Jackie may have been acting a little erratic during the actual shooting.
So very blurry images, but you can definitely see her doing something.
Sort of like leaning down, sort of like the first picture looks like she's sort of just sitting there. The second one, it looks like she's placing her hand around JFK's sort of head, and the third one, she's like almost like her hand is like underneath his head, or sort of like almost hugging him, or like has her arms around him. And
but then if you look,
one of the fatal blows, JFK did receive that right to the neck.
Right in his neck.
Is all. I know.
And if you know anything about the JFK conspiracy theory, which we'll go into in another episode,
that's going to be an amazing episode. Something I'm really excited about.
Just so many weird things and discrepancies about the story that make you think.
And it's terrifying. And some people think that some people think that she like was working with the other gentleman in the car. Who knows? All I'm saying is that was something I researched, and I just wanted to bring that up because it was super interesting. Eric, as I check our timer here.
Oh, is Eric here?
No, my roommate.
He hasn't gotten here yet.
Is not here. We have 55. Oh wow, we are. My gosh, Jefferson, we are out of time.
Wow.
Yeah,
that was a quick hour.
It has been 55 minutes. Is there anything? So we have about 5 minutes.
Well,
left.
Yeah, I mean,
let's go ahead and I know you really wanted to talk about some stuff.
Yeah, there was some things that I did want to squeeze in there.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is probably just part one of MK Ultra.
Yeah.
We'll probably revisit this in the future because
definitely.
One thing that's going on today is a lot of pop stars are people suspect are victims of MK Ultra. You know, these pop stars who are, up on stage or in the videos with wearing nothing basically, which kind of, you can think of all kinds of conspiracies of why sex sells in the music industry.
It's your biological.
Well,
it's insane.
There's so many things you can talk about, and one of them is they want white Americans to be breeding, so that's why they're making they want to make abortions illegal.
Oh my God!
They don't want to teach They don't want to teach safe sex in schools. Christian kids have babies. Christian teenagers have babies at the same rate as non-Christians do. So there is kind of a goal to keep breeding, especially white Christian voters. The idea is to breed voters so we can outbreed the brown population that are, increasing in numbers. So that's a scary thing. That's something that I hate. It's horrible.
That's absolutely terrifying.
So that's a reason why sex might be in everyone's faces.
I had never thought about that.
So you can look into that. It's all over YouTube, and we'll talk about it in another episode. Lastly, I did want to just shout out one of my favorite men of all time, Dick Gregory. He just passed away a few weeks ago. Dick Gregory is the most brilliant, courageous man when it comes to conspiracies. So I really just want to shout out him and his family. He just passed away, and he's one of my favorite people of all time. So please, 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 if you want to know about the black struggle in America, Dick Gregory will break it down for you. So if you want to know why Kaepernick is kneeling right now, 2017, the football world is just going crazy, police brutality. So if you want to learn a little bit and listen to one of the most brilliant minds that there is, Dick Gregory. Check him out on YouTube, please.
Dick Gregory. And hey, while you're on YouTube, feel free to search /story on YouTube. Give us a subscribe. Watch our previous episodes of other shows. Maybe find some shows that you like. Do that enough times, and hopefully we can get a custom URL so we can have that /story YouTube URL. But for right now, you can just search /story on YouTube. I feel like I should shout somebody out.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna shout out all the people watching.
Okay.
And whether that's all my Instagram followers, followers of our other show, which is Channel 151, which is every Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Great show. I love it.
Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ken sits in the hot seat where you're sitting right now, Jefferson. And we just kind of babble on about weird news. But I just want to thank, I've met a lot of new podcasters, live streamers lately, and this community is really helpful and sort of not cohesive, like that synergy. And I just met a lot of supportive people. So I just want to thank everybody that not only checks out this podcast, but everyone out there making your own podcast and just making your own content. Because it's fucking fun to do.
Do your thing, bro.
Exactly. Yeah. Do your thing. So at the end of all that, my friends.
Rock over London, rock on Chicago, Blockbuster Video. Wow, what a difference.
I don't know what that is.
Some people might.
Some people might. I do not. But we are out of time here. So, hey, feel free to watch us on twitch.tv/story every now and then. We're going to broadcast this show every other Saturday. We're still figuring that out. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. And, hey, guys, watch out for that pretty sneaky stuff. Adios.